order. Questions to the Prime Minister. Ian Mearns. Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I've been asked to reply. Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, is visiting the United States for meetings with President Obama and briefings on Afghanistan. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, the whole House will wish to join me in paying tribute to Marine Jonathan Crooks from 40 Commando Royal Marines and Senior Aircraftman Kin Nicky Griffiths from the RAF Regiment, both of whom died on Friday, and Sergeant David Monkhouse from the Royal Dragoon Guards and Staff Sergeant Brett Lindley from 11 Explosive Ordnance Disposal Regiment, the Royal Logistic Corps, both of whom died on Saturday. Mr. Speaker, they were, of course, men of great courage and selflessness who died in the service of our country, and their sacrifice will not be forgotten. And I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of the whole House when I say we also send our deepest condolences to their family and friends whose own courage and dignity, like so many others who've lost loved ones in Afghanistan, is truly inspiring.
Ian Mearns.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that the whole House will join me in sending our deepest sympathy and condolences to the families and friends of our brave service personnel who have died in the course of their duties while on action in Afghanistan. Mr. Speaker, it is now a fortnight since the people of Gateshead were told of the axing of the Building Schools for the Future programme, which affects 5 local schools in the borough of Gateshead. This deeply concerns communities who have lost this much-needed investment, and Liberal Democrat councillors in some of those areas who now fear losing their seats. Will the Deputy Prime Minister agree to meet the borough's MPs to discuss a way forward for these schools that have had much-needed investment wrenched from their grasp by this government's action?
Mr. Speaker, of course I understand his concern about schooling in his constituency. But we should be under no illusions. The Building Schools for the Future programme would have had to be cut even if Labour was still in power. It was the Labour government that cut capital investment by 50%, but didn't deign to tell people what that would mean. It was a programme which wasn't effectively run. It took 3 years before the first brick was laid after the beginning of the programme. Of course, we will look at new ways of making sure that capital investment continues to flow into existing schools and into new schools, particularly primary schools, which were excluded from the Building Schools for the Future programme. And of course, we'll meet with him.
Mr. David Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And may I express my gratitude for the Prime Minister raising the case of my constituent Gary McKinnon with the US President. Given the mutual commitment to find a way through and seek an appropriate solution, are there now real grounds for optimism that there is light at the end of a tortuous tunnel for Gary McKinnon?
Mr. Speaker, I have long been associated with this case, and I would like to pay tribute to my honourable friend for all the work he has done on behalf of Gary McKinnon. No one doubts the gravity of the offences which he is alleged to have committed. That is beyond a question. The simple question is whether he should, in these circumstances, be tried here or extradited to the United States. And the Prime Minister and the President of the United States indicated yesterday that they've had a discussion on Gary McKinnon and that, notwithstanding the gravity of the alleged crimes, they hope to find a way forward.
Jack Straw.
Mr. Speaker, may I join the right honourable gentleman in paying tribute to the British servicemen who have been killed in Afghanistan in recent days. Marine Jonathan Crooks from 40 Commando Royal Marines and Senior Aircraftman Kin Nicky Griffiths from the RAF Regiment, who both died on Friday, and Sergeant David Monkhouse from the Royal Dragoon Guards and Staff Sergeant Brett Lindley from 11 Explosive Ordnance Disposal Regiment, the Royal Logistic Corps, who both died on Saturday. These were very brave men who lost their lives in the service of their country, our country. We salute their courage, and we will always honour their memory and sacrifice which they have made for us. And I join too very much with the right honourable gentleman in sending our deep condolences to the family, the comrades and friends of these brave service personnel. Mr. Speaker, we welcome the Kabul conference, which the Foreign Secretary has attended, and hope that it does indeed lead to positive improvements in the lives of the people of Afghanistan. The Prime Minister has said that he wants to see United Kingdom combat troops withdrawn by 2014. Could I ask the Right Honourable Gentleman whether that commitment is unconditional, or will it depend on the circumstances on the ground at the time?
First, welcome the Right Honourable Gentleman to the dispatch box. I look forward to answering his questions. This is the first time a Liberal leader has been here in this position since the 1920s, which, given his great longevity in politics, was probably around the time he first joined a Labour shadow cabinet. But to his question about our engagement in Afghanistan, the Prime Minister has been clear, we have been clear as a coalition government, that we do not wish to see British troops in a combat role in Afghanistan by 2015, not 2014 that he suggested. This, of course, is consistent with the timetable for the Afghan forces assuming responsibility for security, as agreed in the Kabul conference yesterday in 2014. No timetable can be chiselled in stone, but we are absolutely determined, given how long we've been in Afghanistan, given that we are 6 months into an 18-month military strategy, embarking on a new political strategy, that we must be out in a combat role by 2015.
Jack Straw.
Well, I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman, Mr. Speaker, for his welcome for this appearance of mine, probably my one and only appearance. Well, there we are. I'm grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for his answer, and I take it from his answer that what indeed he was saying was that this commitment, in my view wisely, is indeed a conditional one. Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman told this House on the 22nd of June that the government had denied a loan to Sheffield Forgemasters because the owners, and I quote, did not want to dilute their own shareholding in the company. But we now know that in private, the Right Honourable Gentleman admitted to the Chief Executive of the company, and I quote, that you made clear to me your own willingness to dilute your equity share. Now, Mr. Speaker, yesterday my right honourable friend, the Shadow Business Secretary, asked you about this, and you ruled that if a minister makes a factual error in a statement to the House, it is preferable that he or she should correct that error in the House. Will the Right Honourable Gentleman now correct this error?
First, lest there's any confusion on the vital issue of Afghanistan, which I hope will continue to enjoy cross-party support, let me be absolutely clear that we will see our troops withdrawn from Afghanistan from a combat role by 2015. That is what we are determined to see happen. On Sheffield Forgemasters, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman knows that the problem was simply one of affordability. Lord Mandelson was writing out cheques to companies like Forgemasters, which he knew would bounce. All the while, writing in his memoirs, I quote, "We were deep in a pit of debt and still digging." That was what was wrong. What was wrong to pretend that there could be government assistance for a great company like Sheffield Forgemasters when, as the former Chief Secretary of the Treasury said, there was no money left.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I find it surprising that the Deputy Prime Minister, who has preached the importance of open and transparent and honest politics, cannot even bring himself to correct the record of something that was plainly wrong. Now, it is not the case that the explanation he is now offering is the explanation he offered before. The explanation he offered before was about the dilution of the company's shareholding or not. And that was the same explanation that was offered to this House by the Prime Minister. The question is, the Prime Minister told this House on the 7th of July, the question is whether it is an appropriate use of taxpayers' money to give it to a business which could raise that money by diluting its shareholding. Now that it is clear that the basis on which both he and the Prime Minister made the decision to refuse the loan was simply wrong, will he reconsider that decision?
That wasn't a question, it was a sort of dissertation. Mr. Speaker, he talks about openness and transparency. What would have been more open and transparent would have been if Lord Mandelson and his government had admitted there was no money. And by the way, don't take it from me. Don't take it from me. I think it was summed up rather well by one of the workers in Sheffield Forgemasters who...
I must appeal for calm. I can see members ranting at the tops of their voices at the Deputy Prime Minister. It is wrong and it must stop. Whatever the feeling, it must stop. The public detest it and so do I. The Deputy Prime Minister.
If he thinks that's a lot of noise, he should try it from there. It's even worse. Let me cite what a worker working in the shop floor of Sheffield Forgemasters said in the Sheffield Star just last week. On a visit to Sheffield Forgemasters by Lord Mandelson, he said, "I asked Lord Mandelson if the country was near to bankruptcy, where would the money come from? He turned away to speak to my gaffer. I asked him again, and he said very..."
Order. I'm sorry to have to interrupt the Deputy Prime Minister, but this is in itself very discursive, and it is not relevant to the precise responsibility of a member of the government. So we'll leave it. Order. I don't require any guidance. We'll leave it there. Jack Straw.
Mr. Speaker, well, let us just come on to this issue of affordability. Not the reason he or the Prime Minister gave originally, but let's look at the issue of affordability. He says that he's concerned about affordability, but for a start, this is a loan, not a grant, to help Sheffield Forgemasters build Britain's future in low-carbon manufacturing. He's not prepared to make this loan, but why is he prepared to acquiesce in the spending of £550 million a year on so-called tax breaks for marriage, a policy which he himself described as patronising drivel?
Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman is living in complete denial. When we came into government, we discovered that the structural deficit was £12 billion worse than he had led us to believe. His government had announced £50 billion worth of cuts without having the decency to tell the British people what you were going to do about it. And the former Chancellor, we now discover from Lord Mandelson's infinitely helpful memoirs, had actually planned to increase VAT, lower tax for people on low pay and cut corporation tax. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it does. We had to do it. They didn't have the courage to do it.
Mr. Speaker, I note that the Right Honourable Gentleman didn't say a word about his acquiescence in spending £500 million a year on marriage tax breaks, which he himself has criticised. And no wonder, Mr. Speaker, that his noble and newfound friend, Lord Ashcroft, says today... says today, and I quote, even in the...
Order! I want to hear what the noble lord has been saying. Let's hear it. Jack Straw. There's far too much noise. Jack Straw.
Says today, even in the Liberal Democrat-held seats, less than a quarter of voters thought the Liberal Democrats were having a significant impact on the government's agenda. And don't we have it here, Mr. Speaker? First, the Right Honourable Gentleman blamed the cancellation of the loan on the company's unwillingness to dilute the shareholding. Then he said it was unaffordable. Last week, he told the Yorkshire Post that Sheffield Forgemasters didn't need a loan after all. I'm not surprised they're baying, because this is one excuse after another. He said, Forgemasters can find...
Order! Members are beside themselves. I'm quite worried about their health. They really do need to calm down. Order! But I simply say to the Right Honourable Gentleman that I do want there to be some time for backbench members. Mr. Jack Straw.
He said to the Yorkshire Post, Forgemasters can find the money for expansion elsewhere. Now we know that they cannot find that money, as they said yesterday. Hasn't the whole edifice of his argument been demolished? And why on earth will he not reconsider this ludicrous decision?
Thank heavens this is going to be the last time he'll dispatch box like this. It seems to me he needs to go away and practice a bit more. Speaker, he talks about impact. Let me just ask him this: why did his government do nothing to sort out the banks who were not prepared to offer a decent loan at reasonable rates to Forgemasters? We imposed the levy, his government did not. Why is it that pensioners had to wait until this coalition government came into power to restore the earnings link, which he failed to do for 13 years? Why is it that his party scrapped the 10p tax rate? We have taken 800,000 people on low pay out of paying tax altogether. That is more progress in 10 weeks than he managed in 13 years.
Claire Perry.
Mr. Speaker,
To hear Claire Perry.
Yeah.
on the issue of progress, could the Deputy Prime Minister...
I think the right honourable gentleman had had his allotted span. I apologise, it felt like it. Jack Straw.
With apologies to the honourable lady for devices, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just over a month before the election, the right honourable gentleman warned about the dangers of the kind of policies he's now following. He said, "Just imagine the reaction of my constituents in South West Sheffield. People like that are going to say, 'Who are these people telling us they're suddenly going to take our jobs away?' Who are these people?" Well, Mr. Speaker, now we know who these people are. Are they not the Liberal Democrats? People who are giving power to the Conservatives without any influence over the policies which they used to oppose.
Mr. Speaker, he may bellow as much as he likes. I am happy to account for everything we're doing in this coalition government. A coalition government. A coalition government which has brought together two parties working in the national interest to sort out the mess that he left behind. But maybe he, one day, perhaps we'll have to wait for his memoirs, could account for his role in the most disastrous decision of all, which is the illegal invasion of Iraq.